Hey there, I hope you're well. Welcome back. So here's some more of my thoughts. And today I want to talk about everyone thinks that they have the best DevOps stack. I want to talk about this, my own personal experience seeing this, and also how to deal with these situations as well. So, you know, I'll give you an example. I went for an interview not long ago, and the company was really proud, they were telling me, about converting all of their bash scripts to Golang. So, in case you didn't know, there's been increasing popularity of Golang, and for a good number of reasons. For example, it's great for making CLI tools, it has concurrency, it has a lot of other interesting features. You can compile it to a single binary, for example. So, it's fast. It's quite verbose, but in a good way. So I like that word, verbose. So yeah, it's a super cool language, and let's just say what it is. It's kind of sexy language, basically. So a lot of people are attracted to it. And I went to this interview, and they said, we're converting all of our bash scripts to Golang. So you can tell what happened here, right? Because it's very difficult to say what is the right way or what is the wrong way. There's no single opinion that counts. And what you can say is, a company is entitled to say that for their use case, that even if they're doing something different, they could argue that for their use case, it's the right way to go. Right? And that's what they didn't tell me that, but it was kind of implicit. That's what they were saying. And I'm supposed to take that on face value. Now, I just don't believe it. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. If they had said to me, we're converting some of our bash scripts to Golang, then I would have said, okay, cool, what kind of use cases? Which ones are you converting and why? And we could have had an interesting conversation. But when they just said to me blanket, we're converting all our bash scripts to Golang, I was just like, okay, that's actually a red flag. There is no reason to do that. And clearly what they're doing there is they're proud of this, and probably the manager or maybe someone senior in the team has decided this is the way to go, this is what I think, and they've told the team this is what we're going to do. And probably the rest of the team either were afraid to object or just didn't care to actually question this decision and do their own research, or maybe they were even scared to object. I don't know, because I cannot think of one reason to do that. There's always a use case for at least some bash in a DevOps environment. At least some. There's always. You cannot say that Golang is always better than bash, or even that bash is always better than Golang. You cannot say that. It's just BS, in my opinion. So my point is that everyone thinks that they have the best stack, whether it's the scripting language, like in this case, or whether it's something else. I am a big proponent of keeping things simple. And one of the reasons for that is that if you stick to well-established stacks, it's a lot easier to find people to hire. If you do something really obtuse, like you use Golang and you use, let's say, GKE, but only for your Kubernetes, and the rest use AWS, and let's say you also use both Bash and PowerShell, right? Even though you don't have any Windows, you appreciate PowerShell because it's object orientated, so it's super powerful for some things. How are you going to find a guy who's got both Bash and PowerShell and GKE skills in the market? Oh, let's say you're also not using Terraform, but you're asking for Pulumi, right, which isn't used by that many shops. How are you going to find, not only a guy or a girl, a man or a woman, how are you going to find someone who has all of those skills? It's almost impossible. That's why I'm a big fan of keeping things simple, keeping things to commonly used tools. Even if you have a point, and even if you think you're right, and you actually may even have a point that a particular tool is better for your particular use case, if you go too far off the beaten path with your solutions, with your stack, your DevOps stack, you're going to find it super hard to find new hires. And in fact, even if you can, you're probably going to have to pay them more. So it's just not a good idea. I think keep things simple. Keep your tool set on the slim side, then more complex if you can, and get the best out of it. And choose your tools wisely, and don't go too crazy with your selection. Everyone thinks that they have the best DevOps stack, but you'll be punished for it especially if that stack, which it probably is, if someone has this kind of false pride, it's probably going to be some really obtuse, weird stack, like the one that I mentioned. Be pragmatic. Don't let your ego get in the way. Don't think that your use case is so special. I'll come back to that in a second, but there's an analogy here. There's a phrase that everyone thinks they have the best dog, or you can have. I call this kind of thing like a playground argument. It's like when someone says, "Well, Man United is the best team," or "No, it's not. It's Chelsea." It's a playground argument. Or to say one console is better than the other. There is no better. There is no best. Do what you want, but do it deliberately. Do research before you make decisions. And always question yourself. Revisit those decisions later on. Don't make those decisions on your own. Solicit opinions from a wider field of opinion. Listen to others. Don't just get lip service and ignore what they say. Leave your ego at the door. Do not be like this. It's not that. I think a lot of people have this problem, and they really have it in DevOps because especially there's so many tools there. It would be different if we were all forced to use one platform. Then I think it would be a lot different. But as it is, it's super flexible, the world. There's a lot of different open source tooling, and unfortunately it means people get a lot of crazy opinions. So everyone thinks that their use case is so special as well. This is the other thing, right? So if you dare to say to someone, well, that's a bit of an unusual stack, isn't it? Then again, it will quite often feed their ego, and they will say, well, we have a particular use case. And they say that. And they say, well, we're pushing the envelope. We're different. And I've seen this at some companies, and I've worked with those companies. And you can even be in the company, and what happens is a lot of people have a kind of group think, and they find it difficult to get other opinions, which is why I often, when I'm doing interviews with new people, I will tell them about the stack that we're using, because they deserve to know anyway about what they're getting into. But I will also ask them, I will say, look, tell me, what do you think about this stack? It could be like, I might say, well, your stack is very different to ours, even though you're kind of doing similar things. I also want to know other perspectives. Tell me what you think about this stack. Can you be honest? Now, let's face it, most of the time, people are not going to be overly opinionated in an interview. They're going to be a little bit afraid to disagree. But if you phrase the question correctly and you say, look, I'm really open, and I really want to hear your opinion. I don't want to hear what you think is good to say. I really want to hear what you think. And then it can be super interesting when they lay their cards on the table like that. And you also see who is a strong character. But yeah, my point is, even inside an organization, when I've been there, even then there was a lot of groupthink. And it was often only when I left that I looked back and I thought, you know what? They weren't doing anything particularly complex. What they were doing was not on the bleeding edge. They were not pushing the envelope. Their traffic was fairly consistent throughout the whole year. I never really saw any pushing of the envelope. I never saw any massive traffic surges, for example, in their website or their API. And they may not have done some things which would be more common in another company, such as significant amount of auto scaling or something like that. They really weren't pushing the envelope. So when I was being told that they needed to do X, Y, and Z, then it actually wasn't true. In fact, I can give an example of a company where I went there and I gave them my perspective, and I said, why are you using Kafka? And actually, there was mixed opinions on this. So Kafka, if you don't know, is a messaging or a streaming platform. And of course, there are many choices for messaging / streaming. And actually, most of the people there were like, never gave it much thought. And there was one guy who was like, yeah, we really don't need to be using it. We could be using something else. We could revisit it. It's a bit too late. We're already heavily bought into this, and we can't really reverse at this stage. We would have to do it when we're doing a major big bang and changing a lot of stuff out. And I realized actually that there was a compelling reason why they were using it, and it was because they were using it for a common use case of Kafka, which is change data capture. So it's linking it to a database, and this is a very common use case. But to be honest, that use case alone didn't justify using Kafka. I think what happened was someone just decided to use that one day because it fit one use case, but they didn't really realize the big trade-off is that it's not easy to manage that in a small team that doesn't have quite the expertise, and probably should have chosen something a bit more simple. So yeah, maybe they were suffering from the whole ego thing of thinking this would be great to do, and they weren't really thinking and listening to others. So anyway, I've said enough on that. I hope you found this interesting. Please, what do you think about this? Does everyone think they have the best DevOps stack, just like everyone thinks they've got the best dog or the prettiest partner or whatever it might be? Let me know. Please leave a comment. You may agree or disagree, and give this video, at least if you found it at least somewhat useful, give it a like, and I will see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.